Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now here, the government has come under attack this week over fare increases on the railways. It's the second controversy to hit the Transport Secretary in recent weeks, after he was accused of allowing a rail operating company to avoid paying hundreds of millions of pounds to public coffers when he negotiated an early end to the East Coast Mainline franchise. That accusation was levelled by the former chairman of the National Infrastructure Commission, Lord Adonis, who quit over Christmas. Well, earlier I spoke to Lord Adonis and began by putting to him the government's claim that there was no bailout on the East Coast Mainline and that Virgin Stagecoach would continue to meet its financial commitment. Had he, I asked, got it wrong when he said the taxpayer was on the hook to the tune of billions of pounds?
That statement is completely untrue, because the franchise is being terminated in 2020 rather than 2023. So what they're saying is that the Stagecoach and Virgin partnership will continue to make its payments until 2020, when they terminate the franchise.
So the government's trying to pull the wool over people's eyes?
They are.
Well, how do you explain then the government's statement also that Stagecoach has, they say, paid 20% more on average back to the taxpayer than during your tenure as Transport Secretary?
That's not the issue at all. That's another smokescreen. The big issue is whether Stagecoach and Virgin, which bid £3.3 billion for the privilege of running the trains over the East Coast Main Line from London to York and up to Edinburgh, whether they will pay all of that £3.3 billion as they're contracted to do until 2023, or whether they're going to be excused paying up to £2 billion of it by terminating the contract early. And what they've done is, unfortunately, to give them a bailout. Well,
but you renationalised the East Coast Main Line, effectively. There was a cost attached to that as well, wasn't there?
But the absolutely crucial thing about nationalising the East Coast, when National Express defaulted on their obligations, is that no one followed suit, and National Express itself paid a huge penalty.
But do you remember what it cost the taxpayer?
It did. Of course it cost the taxpayer, because we lost some of the payments that they were due to make.
But do you remember what the cost was?
It was significant. I mean, it was in...
a billion quid,
yeah,
at least.
It was in hundreds of millions of pounds at the time. But that's not the point at issue, because the point at issue here is that if they go down this route of bailing out Stagecoach and Virgin, as they're proposing to do, then this will be a precedent for every other train company in the country.
In your letter of resignation, you make very clear that really the primary reason for you quitting as infrastructure chief was Brexit and your determination to oppose Brexit. I mean, isn't that something a little bit troubling about an unelected peer going against the mandate supplied to the government by half the country?
I think there are two different issues here. I, as a parliamentarian, have a duty to say what I think about the prospects facing the country. There's no point having parliamentarians if we don't. I'm also a Democrat, and I understand that there was a narrow majority in favour of Brexit in June 2016, but the issue now is the terms on which we leave the European Union, and I think it's slowly dawning on the country that that's going to mean significant damage to our trade and to our jobs.
Well, you say it's slowly dawning on the country, but I mean, if you look at the evidence of the opinion polls, there's very little shift, really. People who voted for Brexit are happy that they voted for Brexit, and they want the government to get on and deliver
actually,
it.
for many months now, the opinion polls have shown a majority in favour of staying in the European Union. The polls at the moment show that.
Too close to call.
Well, but opinion does appear to be moving. Now, my view as a Democrat is that the right thing is for the country to have a say on the final terms. You know, it's like moving house. It's one thing to say that in principle you want to move house, and you've seen some attractive offer for what appears to be a larger and more beautiful house a mile away. But you do need to actually go and see it. You need to check that the electrics work, that the kitchen's in good order, that the specifications meet those that were in the further particulars.
Do you believe Jeremy Corbyn will back a second referendum?
I do. Yes, because what will happen over the course of the next 9 months to a year is that increasingly the terms in which we leave the European Union will become associated with Theresa May and the hard right of the Conservative Party. Now, I don't believe that Jeremy can associate himself with a hard right Conservative approach to Brexit, and that's why I think, crab-like and in stages, Labour will get to supporting a referendum on those final terms.
Wasn't it deeply offensive to compare Brexit to appeasing the Nazis? Do you regret your choice of words there?
What I said was that in terms of the importance of the decision for the country, this is one of those turning point moments. But I think everyone, including the Brexiteers, accept that this is a fundamental turning point for the country. And it's important that we don't minimise it, because once we've left the institutions of the European Union in March 2019, if our children's generation want to come back in again, they have got to start from scratch in these negotiations. And that's a very, very big position to leave them in.
Lord Adonis, thank you very much. Well, we did bid for the Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, but he declined. In response to Lord Adonis, though, the Department of Transport confirmed to us plans for a new East Coast partnership from 2020. They also said that Virgin Trains had paid all premiums in full and expected them to do so as long as their contract continues. In relation to Stagecoach, the government said the company was committed to injecting additional funds in circumstances where it doesn't perform as predicted, a commitment they intend to hold them to.